Early Tuesday morning, on February 18th, Ricco Wayne Fleming died. He had been in the hospital for about a week while they were running tests on him, trying to figure out what was wrong. He had double pneumonia in both of his lungs, but he was so emaciated that he was unable to fight the infection and survive. It seems that the real underlying problem that weakened his body and made him so emaciated was that he had cancer. The doctors were unable to discover which organ the cancer was in, but they did find a large tumor, and they could tell from his blood cell counts that he had cancer. But they never isolated it. And I believe he had cancer for a couple of years. And he lived here in Renton with us for 4 years. And when he came here, he was sickly, but he just got gradually worse and worse, just gradually deteriorated over time. He was so ill that, unfortunately, he was not able to spend a lot of time outside of his room, so he didn't get to hang out very often. We talked quite often, but we didn't get to go do things, and unfortunately, we don't have any pictures of him, so I just have to show his Facebook page. When we talked, he often lamented that he wasn't well enough to be able to go out and hike and live an active life and do the things that he used to do. And we would have enjoyed being able to do those things with him too. In any case, if he had survived the pneumonia, he wouldn't have had much longer to live anyway, because the doctor said they would not have been able to treat his cancer. They wouldn't have been able to give him chemotherapy because he had become too malnourished. For the past couple weeks of his life, before he went to the hospital, he just stopped eating and couldn't really move. And I didn't know I lived downstairs, and I didn't really know what was going on with him until he finally begged for help. And for about a week and a half, I was getting him food, and he couldn't move from his chair, and I would go to the store and get him food, and he couldn't really eat. His throat was in pain, and he couldn't hold any food down. Eventually, I was able to convince him to go to the hospital, but by then it seems like it was a bit too late. Even for people of faith, I think death is difficult to wrap one's head about. For me, it's disappointing because I felt like the story wasn't complete yet. I wanted to see a happier ending for him. When he came to us 4 years ago, this was his Facebook photo, and as you can see, it's a very sad and despondent expression, and he felt that way over the loss of a relationship. And one thing you can glean from this photo is this is the political compass map, right? And he's way over here in the far lower left corner, which means he's a socialist who's a very libertarian socialist who's in the same quadrant as someone like Gandhi. Now, I don't know much about Ricco's early life. I know that he was a musician, and he'd even spent, he came from Nashville, from Tennessee. He had spent some time in Nashville following his dream there with his band. But I know that was a big deal for him, and he was really into gaming. both board games and computer games. And he was into fantasy. He was into Dungeons and Dragons. And he had a whole bunch of fantasy, sci-fi magazines and games. He even had a sword. That was pretty cool. And I was looking at it the other day. All I really know are the last 4 years, of course. And I think the defining feature about Ricco was his faith. I don't remember where it was exactly that I met Ricco online, but it was in some group, one of those groups where you argue with people about stuff. And we became friends there, and somehow our friendship blossomed online. And I think most of the people who knew Ricco at the end knew him online, and he had some very good friends who never met him in person, where their relationship is completely online, but they were able to create a real bond with him. And I was one of those people, but then eventually when he was facing homelessness and despair, we offered him here a place to stay, and he came and he lived here for 4 years. And wherever it was I met him, I remember that early on he created this group, the Christian Left, Trinitarian Christianity, and the Economic Left. In other words, he's a for the most part a traditional evangelical Christian, but he's also leans on towards the socialist side, or democratic socialist, or social democrat, whatever term you want to use. And he probably has his most friends from that group. And I'm going to be posting this there for them to know. And he was the admin there. He was the guy that started it. And you can see that there are almost 3,000 members there. So it was a large and active group. I think the other group that he was in we share. It was kind of funny. We share 19 other groups, or 21 different groups together. But I think the one for the past couple of years, the one he had the most fun in was this Calvinist theology versus the rest of Christianity group. He really enjoyed, but he couldn't stand Calvinism and enjoyed bashing it as much as he could. It became one of his favorite pastimes. Ricco was a big Bernie Sanders fan, and that's probably how we met each other, actually, come to think of it. And he believed in that sort of ethic of helping each other and sharing and providing health care for everyone and creating a better economy for everyone. The whole Bernie Sanders thing. Ricco was a huge supporter of that. So much so, as I said earlier, he created this group, the Christian Left, Trinitarian Christianity, and the Economic Left. And he moderated this, and he was very active here. I think he built a lot of friends on this website here, or on this Facebook group here. As I mentioned previously, I think the most defining feature of Ricco was his faith. And I'm just going to put up this his cover photo here of this fantasy setting. Is very pretty. But while I talk about his faith, I suppose the one great comfort I have about Ricco's final year was that it was about a year ago that he finally had his epiphany or enlightenment, where he came to understand the full depth of agape. And agape, of course, is the scriptural word for love. It's unconditional love. It's God's love for us. It's the kind of love He commands us to have for each other. And for Ricco, agape really defined a selfless and giving ethic, and it really undergirded his socialist values, and He had known about agape for quite some time, but I think, like with many Christians, he believed in agape, but also still carried with him all these other Christian theologies alongside of it that aren't really compatible. But in the end, Ricco came to understand that it really was just only agape and nothing else. All the other theologies don't matter. And this is the sort of love. Well, let me read Romans here. So let me read the end of Romans 8. For I am convinced that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor any other created thing will be able to separate us from the love of God. And, what it says right here, neither height nor depth. Well, depth is Hades, what we call hell. There is no hell in Scripture, but Hades. So neither death nor Hades can separate us from the love of God. Let me follow that up with Psalm 139. Where can I go from thy spirit, or where can I flee from thy presence? If I ascend to heaven, thou art there. So that harkens back to what Paul said, height. If I make my bed in Hades, that's the Greek word. The Hebrew root is Sheol, of course, but we all are more familiar with the Greek. If I make my bed in Hades, behold, thou art there. So neither height nor depth. If I take the wings of the dawn, if I dwell in the remotest part of the sea, even there thy hand will lead me, and thy right hand will lay hold of me. If I say, surely the darkness will overwhelm me, and the light around me will be night, even the darkness is not dark to thee, and the night is as bright as the day. Darkness and light are like to thee. So what it's saying here is that even if I'm in Hades, and I dwell in the remotest part of the sea, and that is a reference to the worst part of Hades, the lowest part, even there, your hand will lead me, and your right hand will lay hold of me. Who is at the right hand of the Father right now? Yeshua, Jesus is. So even if we are in the remotest part of Hades, the worst part, even there, Jesus will find us and lay hold of us. And the final passage I'll read is from 1 Peter 3, 18 through 22, and then 1 Peter 4, 6. For Christ also died for sins once for all, the just for the unjust, in order that he might bring us to God, having been put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the Spirit, in which also he went and made proclamation to the spirits now in prison. So this is referring to Jesus' descent into Hades to preach to the dead who are now in prison, who once were disobedient when the patience of God kept waiting in the days of Noah during the construction of the ark, in which a few, that is 8 persons, were brought safely through the water. And corresponding to that, baptism now saves you, not the removal of dirt from flesh, but an appeal to God for a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who is at the right hand of God, we just talked about that earlier, having gone into heaven after angels and authorities and powers had been subjected to him. So, these two passages connect because Jesus, who is at the right hand of God, went down into the remotest part of the sea, into Hades, to preach to the dead who are there. And these are the bad people, the generation of Noah. Right? Remember, God flooded the earth because men were so evil with our violence and hatred. And it's these people that Jesus went and preached to. Now, I could spend more time proving all this, but that's not the point of this video. This is about Ricco. I don't want to get too far afield. For the gospel has for this purpose been preached even to those who are dead, those who perished in the flood, that though they are judged in the flesh as men, that is, they perished in the flood, they may live in the spirit according to the will of God. And why? Why would Jesus preach to those who perished in the flood? Well, verse 8 says, I didn't post it here, but verse 8 says, because love, because agape covers a multitude of sins. Actually, I'm going to add just one more passage here. And I guess this is becoming Ricco's funeral, and I'm giving a little bit of a message here. This is from Psalm 88. Forsaken among the dead, like this. I should give the little background here. This is from the psalm was written by the sons of Korah. If you might remember, Korah was someone who led a rebellion against Moses, and the ground opened up and swallowed him whole, carried him whole down into Hades. And so his sons are lamenting for him. Forsaken among the dead, like the slain who lie in the grave, whom thou dost remember no more, and they are cut off from thy hand. Thou hast put me in the lowest pit, in dark places, in the depths, in the abyss in the Hebrew. So this is when we read in Psalm 139 about even though I dwell in the remotest part of the sea, your right hand will they hold of me. Well, that's Korah. He's in the lowest pit, the remotest part of the sea, of the depths. Thy wrath has rested upon me, and thou hast afflicted me with all thy waves, the waves of the sea, the waters of Hades. Verse 10, wilt thou perform wonders for the dead? Will the departed spirits rise and praise thee? Will your loving kindness, will your love be declared in Hades, thy faithfulness in Abaddon? Will thy wonders be made known in the darkness, and thy righteousness in the land of forgetfulness? So the sons of Korah are asking God, is there hope for our Father? Is there hope for those who dwell in the remotest part of Hades? And of course, the answer, as we have read, I'm kind of doing this backwards, but the answer which we read earlier, I am convinced that neither life nor death, nor height nor depth can separate us from the love of God. And then we see that Jesus himself, when he died, he went and preached to the generation of Noah who was in Hades and ultimately brought them to life in the Spirit. They may live in the Spirit according to the will of God. So I mention this because Ricco, in his last years, Ricco became a universalist and believed in the salvation of all. That's how far and deep his love became, his understanding of love. That God loves everyone and will save everyone, even if they are in the worst part, the remotest part of hell. And we see in 1 Peter that Jesus went and preached to the dead and brought them to life. He saved them. The worst people there were. The generation of Noah, he saved them, brought them to life in the Spirit. When Ricco first came here, and I mentioned it to him several times, and I'm going to end with this because, I'll say at the end. I don't have the text in front of me. I'll just tell you. There's a story in The Shepherd of Hermas, who, this is a book that's in the Apostolic Fathers, widely shared and read by the early church, and I mean the first century, that, they were aware of, the early Christians were aware of Jesus preaching to the generation of Noah and bringing them to life. And the Shepherd of Hermas writes that just as Jesus, when he died, went and preached to the dead, so too did the apostles and elders after him. Do you catch that? They believed that not only did Jesus preach to the dead, but afterward the apostles and the elders also, when they died, went to Hades to preach to the dead. And I used to comfort Ricco by saying, even though you're sick and not well and things don't seem to be going well, this is not the end. And Ricco, I believe when you die, you too will go and preach to the dead in Hades, so that you can share the love of God there with them. So to answer the question, to help answer the question of the sons of Korah, will God's love be made known in Hades? Yeah, it will. And I believe that right now, Ricco is there making God's love known, even in Hades. So even though we feel a bit robbed of a good completion to the end of his story here in life, his story is still going on. And he is completing his story by preaching love to those who are dead. Fare thee well, Ricco, until we see each other again. And I hope to become co-laborers again.